Michigan wins, but still struggles against Arkansas State, and now they're putting in Alex Orji as the starting quarterback against USC. Will it make a difference? Coming up next. Welcome to the Point a Minute show on Michigan football at the Voice of College Football, where we make one outstanding point for every minute of video. My name is Cliff. His name is Mac. Let's get into it. Michigan is currently 2-1, and it has been a rough 3 weeks for the reigning national champions, the Michigan Wolverines. This week isn't getting any better as they face number 11 USC. Fortunately, it's at the Big House. It's another home game, but that might be the only advantage that Michigan has. So let's get right into our question number one. Mac, are the games really as bad as they look? And now that Texas is number one, does that look better for Michigan after losing to them?
Yeah, I mean, Texas has looked dominant all of their games so far. I mean, they looked dominant against Michigan. In the second half, they absolutely called off the dogs, or that probably could have gotten a lot worse. So in no world is Michigan ever going to compete with what Texas is right now. Texas is on a whole nother level. They're looking at a national championship. They actually look pretty similar to how Michigan looked last year. Like they're blowing everybody out. They're a one-track mind on a national championship this year, much like Ohio State is. The only difference is that Texas has actually played somebody. So yes, it's obviously good for Michigan that Texas is number one, but it depends on what Michigan does with it. If Michigan turns things around, then they can look at the playoff committee and say, look at our resume. Like, yeah, we've got the loss to Texas. It was a bad loss, but Texas is number one. So that's got to account for something. That should still help them get into one of the top 12 spots. But that being said, I don't know that we really want to hang our hats on that just yet. But either way, yeah, Texas being number one, that's definitely a positive. And I feel like we all kind of knew that was coming. It probably would have been quite demoralizing if Texas had trashed Michigan the way that they did and then lost to Texas San Antonio.
Okay, well then let's look forward now to the upcoming game against USC. Now, Coach Moore announced today that they're pulling Davis Warren. He had, 3 interceptions against Arkansas State, not to mention the interceptions he had against Texas and Fresno. So they're pulling Davis Warren. Tuttle is still on the injured list. Alex Orji is the next one with the most experience. He's coming in as the starter against USC. Is that going to make a difference against USC? Now that USC has beaten Louisiana State and is number 11 now? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Number 11 now.
11. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways that you can take this. So Alex Orji probably always should have been the starter. I think that it's interesting that they used, and we did this too. We said on the channel completion percentage. Completion percentage was the metric by which we wanted to measure the quarterback. And at Michigan, we've got a pretty low standard for completion percentage because it's not their identity. It's not Michigan's identity to throw the ball. But if you're going to use completion percentage as a metric by which you're going to measure your quarterback performance by, and then use that as the foundational element for developing your offensive game plans, you need to make sure that what you're banking on then is that your running game is going to be your identity. And you need to make sure that that's actually the case. And through the first 2 games against Fresno State and Texas, that wasn't the case. So a lot of the game rested on Davis Warren throwing the ball. And you can't do that. I don't know that any Michigan quarterback outside of J.J. McCarthy is really capable of that. I could see an argument for Cade McNamara. But again, Cade McNamara was, check down Cade for a reason. He was reliable. I mean, he was reliable, and that's fine. That's what Michigan needs at quarterback is the least that Michigan needs at quarterback is somebody that's reliable. And Davis Warren was not going to be that if Michigan couldn't run the ball. If Michigan could run the ball and establish that as their identity, and all they need Warren to do was throw, every once in a while on 3rd and short, then fine. There's very little pressure, and that probably would have worked out a lot better for Davis Warren. But unfortunately, you saw Davis Warren get rattled because, a lot of the running game wasn't working against Texas and Fresno State. And so there were interceptions because of that. And so you're thinking, okay, coming into Arkansas State, what did I say wanted to happen? I wanted Michigan to sling the ball around so that Davis Warren could get some reps in and feel himself out. And then he goes and throws 3 interceptions. And I don't know what to say about that because Michigan got the running game going. Michigan ran for almost 300 yards in that game, or 250, something like that, 250, 3 tutties. That's what we've come to expect from Michigan's running game. And so it's kind of confusing that we're at a point now where Davis Warren is still throwing interceptions. And we're at the point now where we can't even say like, well, JJ McCarthy had a bad game against Bowling Green last year. Yeah, but it wasn't that bad. And it wasn't this consistently bad either. So I feel like a couple of things went wrong for Davis Warren. He came into this season thinking he's got to be the next JJ McCarthy, and he's not. And that should have been okay, but maybe the pressure got to him. Secondly, he got off on the wrong foot, or the offense got off on the wrong foot because they couldn't establish the run against Fresno State or Texas the way that they wanted to. And so Davis Warren got rattled because of the pressure. Okay, that sucks. But at the end of the day, the performance is the performance. And 3 interceptions is not good. So a change had to be made. But if he's the one that has the better completion percentage, what does this mean we're going to get out of Alex Orji? Now, maybe Alex Orji is the type of quarterback that he just needs to get into a rhythm and he can start hitting passes. That's fine. We've talked about his running ability. Maybe that's what they're seeing in him. Maybe Michigan's just about to go straight up triple option. I feel like there'd probably be a revolt if Michigan did that. I can already hear Bo Schembechler rolling in his grave. I don't know. But that being said, I mean, yeah, Alex Orji, it could make a difference depending on how they use him. But I still think that if they want to use Alex Orji and get into that RPO, the P's still got to work, man.
Well, now I'm wondering one other thing, though. With Davis Warren, you're talking about him getting rattled because the ground game wasn't getting established. Is it also possible that he's getting rattled from the O-line not protecting him? I mean, it looks to me an awful lot like the pocket is collapsing a whole lot faster than it did for JJ. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if any of that, if they could manage to keep the pocket open a little bit longer, would that give Davis Warren more confidence, more time? I mean, obviously give him more time, but would that change his game at all? Or do you think he's still throwing interceptions?
I think it would probably change his game a little bit, but I mean, we're not going to know, right?
Right.
I mean, the line is as the line is, and pass blocking is different from run blocking. And apparently the line can get a push, but they can't, pass block properly. And maybe that's because the defense is throwing different blitz packages at them and they're not identifying them properly. So that says to me that the offensive line has to get better about identifying defenses, which actually is something that falls on the quarterback. The quarterback has to be the one to read the defense and then understand how to adjust his own play call. That's why he goes up to the line and makes audibles and stuff like that based on what he sees from the defense. So if Davis Warren isn't reading a defense properly, then it doesn't matter what the O-line does because somebody's blitzing from somewhere and nobody knows where it's coming from. And boom, the pocket collapses and Davis Warren throws an interception. That's on Warren to understand where the pressure is coming from. Now, actually, that brings up a thought then. Maybe the difference is that Alex Orji is better at reading defenses and can understand where the pressure is coming from. And it's not so much that he can throw himself out of a bad situation, but maybe he can run himself out of a bad situation. I mean, if that pocket collapses and he gets outside, maybe there's green grass for 5, 6, 7, 10 yards, something like that. And maybe that's what they're banking on. It's just Alex Orji's mobility is at a totally different level than Davis Warren, and that gives them a better chance to survive and keep the offense on the field for longer. But again, I still think that they have to establish something of a passing game, even if it means just abusing Colston Loveland's statistics.
So USC's defense last season was dreadful. How does their defense this season compare?
So I can't remember off the top of my head what the statistics are for their defense last year. But I mean, anyone with eyeballs could see that and go, well, frankly, anybody who listened to the broadcast too could see that they weren't doing well last season. I mean, they had trouble doing basic things like even tackling. And I say basic, knowing full well that if somebody like a 300-pound person were running at me in full pads, I'd wet myself. So I'm not saying you should be able to tackle because I could get in there and do it. No, I can't. But they couldn't tackle. That was a lot of the issue, is that they couldn't tackle. They were missed assignments and stuff like that. They were getting beat deep. They were getting beat with the run. They were getting beat 7 ways from Sunday. I can't remember the actual saying. This season, they have 10 points against, which is tied for 18th in the nation. Now, 18th, not Michigan good, at least last year anyway, but it's very good for where they used to be. Danton Lynn is their defensive coordinator. He has done a phenomenal job with this defense year over year, and I'm impressed because I didn't think that he was going to be able to do it in 1 year, but so far he's been able to do it. And maybe it really is just a matter of the fact that he had to teach them how to tackle, and all of a sudden they're that much better. I don't know. But I think you look at a team like LSU. LSU had to come back against South Carolina. So I go back and forth on how much I put into that LSU game, but they still held them to 20 points, and we know LSU as having really good offenses. So for right now, that's a really good defense that USC has.
So we've talked on this show, we've talked on our other show about resetting expectations for Michigan, given the team doesn't look anything like what we thought they would. What are we looking at now for wins and losses for Michigan's season?
It depends, right? Like if they can, okay, best case scenario, they're putting Alex Orji in as starter because his legs are a difference maker. And maybe he needs to throw a few passes. And if he does, he can hit 6 out of 10. If he can do that, then there's something there. And if they can continue establishing the run, which I think they finally figured that out against Arkansas State. And I love Donovan Edwards to death. But Mullings is RB1, man. Mullings has got to be the starting running back, but you need Donovan Edwards on the field somewhere. Put Donovan Edwards out in the flat and let Orji throw a nice, easy pass to him out in the flat, and then just let Edwards do what Edwards will do. I mean, the guy is pure magic with the ball on the other side of the line of scrimmage. So depending on how that shakes out, maybe they've got a shot against USC. So let's just kind of pretend best case scenario happens for Michigan this week. They figure something out on offense and they beat USC. Well, then they've got Minnesota, Washington, and they're at Illinois. And at Illinois is kind of shaping up to be an interesting one. I do think that they beat Minnesota and Washington. Illinois is currently ranked number 24. And they're not looking too bad. So that'll be an interesting test. Will it be as difficult as USC? No, I don't think so. And if they can figure out a way to beat USC, then I think they can beat Illinois. And then they've got Michigan State. If they can beat USC, then they can beat Michigan State for sure. But then it's Oregon. And Oregon, started slow, but I feel like we all knew they were holding something back. I really think they were holding something back because against Oregon State, they looked unstoppable, especially that second half, man. Mm-hmm. So Oregon's going to be tough. But what I'm going to say is this. If Michigan beats USC, then I think that we're looking at a very good chance of Michigan ending the season 9-3, which is a lot better than what we're thinking right now, which is that Michigan's going to get blown out by USC. And then that puts games into question like at Washington, at Illinois, Michigan State. But if Michigan can beat USC 9-3 and then even 10-2, depending on how the Oregon game shakes out, is totally feasible.
All right, that's what we think. Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more great analysis in college football. Don't forget to check out all of the shows and all of the channels in the Voice of College Football Network, especially John D'Adamo and TJ Ronin right here on Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. You can also catch us live on the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show Monday nights at 8 p.m. right here on YouTube. Mac, take us out.
This is the Point a Minute Show on the Voice of College Football.